Hi, Jenny.
Hi. I like your background.
Oh, that's my backyard.
Oh, cool.
Well, not now, in the summer. I think that was taken in September or something.
Very cool. I tried to pick a sweet global background that they have for Zoom calls.
Oh, that was a good idea. Have to enjoy this. I think tomorrow the cyclone bomb is supposed to hit. We're going to get snow and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, my room is pretty cold right now. I'm in my bedroom. So
we've had some pretty nice days, actually.
That's good. I'm just gonna pull up questions.
Good thing my dog can't see that cat.
This is Mocha.
I love the slide they made for us. It's so professional.
Jennifer, I was just going to say your picture looks so like professional. You can tell that that's not an academia picture.
Yeah, we had a Sweet Detroit membership event where we got, it was actually a GM person who did professional photography on the side. So he came in and we had a self-branding workshop and then took pictures. So one of our perks that we gave to our members was professional photos. So this is one of those shots.
Nice.
My husband's a photographer, and he did mine. And one of our Christmas parties at SWE Central New Mexico, he offered $25 headshots for people.
Yeah, that's a good price too. Yeah. It's like, I want to see everyone. So I'm playing around with a different screen. Oh. You might see that this photo a couple of times. I've used it in a couple of sweet things. I've got it on my LinkedIn and I've got it on my work org chart. So
Yeah, I think this one's cast around a bit. I think my husband did this for my, I want to say for my DNE, but it has to have been shorter than that.
over the service award.
Yeah, the Distinguished Service Award, not DNE. What am I thinking? I mean, I have that too, but I didn't have any gray hair then.
I was like, I'm not sure
Yeah,
the DNE.
BSME, I think it was in 2017, so it could have been this one. It's not quite enough gray right now.
It's a nice picture though. It's good to have a photographer in the family then.
Yeah, I took some time to capture my correct side, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this event, he took like 5 pictures and gave, and I'm like, I think I like this one the most. Because he's like, oh, pose this way, right side, left side.
Your hair is cute too.
Yeah.
I think this is the first day I've like gotten up and done my hair, and I don't know how long.
Yeah. It's like I wore a real shirt today.
Yeah, me too. I actually have my SWE shirt on.
Yeah. I thought about wearing the weSTEM shirt and I was like, well, I'll just wear purple, something on the nicer closet, hasn't been seen in a while. So
Yeah, I know the feeling. I made a big decision last month to, I had retired from Sandia a couple of years ago and took a part-time job with related work with Leidos. And I made a big decision to quit March 31st and start Social Security. So it's a big year for us.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I still have about 15 years before retirement. So
Yeah, well.
And that's to retire early, because my financial advisor says right now, if I keep on track right now, it should be pretty decent and live to 92 and still have a good chunk to take care of the family and medical and all that stuff. So
I was real surprised when we were talking to our financial advisor the other day. He said they're now planning at Fidelity for 94 for men and 96 for women.
Oh, okay.
It sort of shocked me. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I sure hope whenever it is, I sure hope I don't start losing my marbles. That would be bad.
Okay, it is 2:15, so we can get started with our panel session for this afternoon. So hello, everyone. We'll probably still have a few people joining, but I'm Zainab. I'm a PhD student here at UIUC and a part of the weSTEM organizing committee this year. I would like to welcome all of you to this panel session. It's titled The Life Side of Work-Life Balance. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. So we request that you keep your video on and stay muted unless asking a question. To ask a question, please use the raise hand feature in the participant tab at the bottom of your screen, and I can call on you to ask your question, or you can send me a private message or just type your message in the chat, and I can ask your question for you. The panelists will introduce themselves, but I have the honor of welcoming our three panelists today. At this session, we have Janet Williams, who is a semi-retired engineer with 36-year career in national security and a fellow of the Society of Women Engineers. Jennifer Morikawa, who is a senior manufacturing project engineer at General Motors and currently serves as the SWE Asian Connections Affinity Group Advisor. And finally, we have Professor Karen Wawrousek, who's an assistant professor of chemical engineering at the University of Wyoming. So we will start by letting the panelists spend a minute or two introducing themselves by telling us about their current position, education, and career path.
Me first, I guess.
Yeah, we can start with you.
Well, you heard I'm semi-retired. I'm actually almost 100% retired. I'm retiring from my second job after a 33-year career at Sandia Labs. And I have I have a background in mechanical engineering and a master's in civil engineering, actually. I worked a whole bunch of different assignments while I was at Sandia Labs. I started in facilities, actually, worked up to project management, site planning, on into program management in the nuclear weapons program, and looking at infrastructure and facilities issues related to maintaining the capabilities of the nuclear weapons complex. And I also had away assignments, 2 years in the United Kingdom on loan, and also a year at one time in DC, and another assignment on and off for a few weeks in DC. You heard I was a fellow of the Society of Women Engineers, so I'm very passionate about all kinds of outreach and advocacy events. And those are my degrees. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today.
Thank you. Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Yep. So I am Jennifer Morikawa. I am a senior manufacturing engineer. I'm a business planner for manufacturing engineering vehicle systems. So basically what that means is I try to help manage the department. I get to hear and learn about the new technologies coming up that we're working with, and kind of promote that, a little bit of succession planning, strategic planning. I graduated from the University of Michigan with a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and started working for General Motors in their paint development program. So they have a program to try to train you to be a paint process engineer. And I actually help with that today. After that program, I went into the polymer side. So followed tooling for polymer parts. And so got to use some of my engineering degree that way, and also earned my master's degree at the same time. So I got GM to pay for my master's degree, and that came from Purdue University. So I finished that in 2006. Got married also during that time, and in 2008, I got to also received the Distinguished New Engineer Award, like Janet had also mentioned before our official panel. She had that in her life, and got to work on some global assignments throughout the years without having to travel. So that has been pretty exciting to work globally in the manufacturing engineering space, and pretty much where I am today still. I did have a developmental assignment in a manufacturing operations area. So I got to make the Chevy Volts for a little while. And yeah, so just been around SWE and working and having kids, and excited to share some of the life side of me. And you can see a picture of me running a global meeting with my son in my lap because of COVID times in that bottom picture there.
Thank you, Jennifer. And then Karen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Wawrousek. I'm an assistant professor in chemical engineering at the University of Wyoming. I certainly didn't start in chemical engineering. My PhD is actually in biochemistry and molecular biophysics from that program at Caltech. I did my PhD there for a while and then decided I really didn't like what I was doing. So I completely kind of switched fields for my postdoc and worked in biofuels. From there, I worked for a company and then went to the University of Wyoming, where I'm an assistant professor in chemical engineering. And along the way, got married and had these guys. It's only 2 kids, despite all the pictures. But when it comes to the life side, this is a big part of the life side outside of work right now. Caring for these guys, making sure we all have fun. We're a pretty outdoorsy family, so Wyoming's a good fit for us. So we like to go sledding and skiing and biking and do all that good stuff. And balancing it all can be a challenge. But yeah, so happy to answer any questions you guys have or anything you want to talk about.
Great, thank you guys. Okay, so thank you to all of the panelists for introducing yourselves. We will now open the session for questions. As a reminder, please use the raise hand feature in the panelists tab, or type your questions into the chat. But while we give the audience to think of a few questions, I will start things off with a question. So what are some of the boundaries you have put in place in your own life to maintain the life side of the balance? Like maybe you don't work on Sundays or turn off email notifications, things like that. Feel free to chime in.
Well, I can start. So I try not to work weekends. It's not always possible being in manufacturing space, especially in automotive, and especially during this time. I like try to limit myself to like maybe once or twice checking my phone in case there's an emergency text or anything to check out, especially with things going on the following week. Fortunately, with my job, there's not always things that are urgent. But I mean, there are a lot of time sensitive things. So I do have to try to prioritize really what's important, and then just say like, okay, I'm done, I'm tired, I need to rest and recuperate. So I don't have any solid, strong lines for demarcation for saying I can or cannot work, because there's times where you're going to have a project that does have urgent needs and to address, and so you do have to be a little bit flexible, at least I think in the manufacturing space, because we do have plants that work even over the weekends and everything. So you know, we do have to be responsive to that.
Well, I can go next. As you might have deduced from my bio, my kids are grown and I haven't had to deal with those kinds of issues in a long time. Of course, many of my colleagues still have children at home and have to deal with that. But I will say that, a lot of my recollections and advice and reflections are going to be retrospective in nature. And it's interesting because I am now having a lot of retrospective conversations with my adult sons about their perceptions of the time when they were growing up. And as you might imagine, they have some complaints about the amount of time I was engaged in work and couldn't let go. I remember making time always for bedtime stories and things like that. I remember I always cooked meals, had dinners, but I don't remember things being. They remember things that I didn't remember. And in retrospect, I was able to remember that I would take calls at almost any time of the day or night, and brought work home. And part of that too is because I was working on a master's degree at night, or part-time while I was working. And so they remember some of that too. And the type A, I guess, came out quite a bit for them. And they noticed that my patience levels weren't what they might have been. So it's been very interesting to me to see in retrospect, or to hear from them in retrospect what their perceptions were. And I've concluded that I could have been better at setting boundaries than I was at the time. So it really is something that's a personal decision that you have to make about what you will and won't do. It's a personal decision who you work for, because, and I've had a lot of questions about this during the breakout room today about what the environment's like at work. And I had a job that I probably could have said no or not answered the calls more than I did, but I felt compelled to at the time. So it's an interesting perspective to I feel a little chastised here lately by my sons, actually, about some of the choices that I made on boundaries that could have been done a little more directly or deliberately.
Janet, there's actually a question, a quick follow-up question for you.
Okay.
In the chat. Wendell is asking if that's a double standard from your kids, like same for your co-parent or not.
So admittedly, they're going through a period in their lives when they're maybe trying to, my adult children are going through a period of time of reconciling how they felt when they were kids and becoming adults and so on. And I think that there's some of that is not real fair to me. I mean, as it happened, I was the major breadwinner in our family, and I brought home all the benefits. So I think I felt strongly compelled to really excel at work and to advance and to ensure that I kept that job. That was the stability in our family. And so they're not always taking that into account. I wouldn't say they had a double standard, but I'm trying to be fair about listening to their perspective at this point in my life. Because I do know that I was a type A, that I was driven, and that for a lot of reasons, I tended to them when I knew it was important, but it's interesting to process this in retrospect.
Karen, did you want to add something?
Sure. It's just that for me, I do the vast bulk of my work. I try to get it done in that kind of when the kids are at school time. But to address that double standard, society has a double standard. So my husband and I both work, but if the kids get sick, I get called. Or if there's anything going on, I get the call and not him. And so it's a lot of decisions about like, what's the most urgent thing right now? Honestly, you're going to take the call about the sick kid if that means you have to leave the meeting, because you have to take care of that. But then other times, we can put off the story time for another half an hour so I can do this meeting now and get it done so things can keep moving forward at work. I mean, I wish I had better rules than I do, but it's really it's a lot of decisions day to day of, okay, what can wait and what can't. And the truth is there's not enough time in the day to do all of it at 100%. So you have to pick and choose.
Karen, I actually was hoping things had gotten a little better since I had to
No.
deal with all this.
No.
You can cheat a little bit by not giving them your phone number. So my husband, like the doctor's office calls my husband, for reminders of appointments. So I'm not, but the daycare does still call me first, or you don't answer the phone and they will call him next. So I have found, they might wait a little bit, but I have found that they have done that too. So they can't, if you don't answer your phone, they will call the next number on there. So that's one way to cheat, right? On it.
Alejandra,
There's
we
definitely-
have a raise. Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
just going to say there's definitely still an assumption that the mother is the default parent.
And
That's who you call first. That's who you do anything with first and deal with them first.
Yeah, I do hear that feedback from a lot of women who work, and especially executive women who have young kids, and they're like, my husband's stay at home. Why are you calling me still? So yeah.
We do have a raised hand. Alejandra, if you want to ask your question.
Yes. Instead of on the same topic, I want to know your experience once you have your babies. How is that transition? How much time you guys took off work or you kept working? How was that experience for you?
Karen, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
You can go first, Jennifer.
Okay. So I think it's definitely a personal decision on how much time you want to take off and everything and how you feel. I personally only took the main maternity that was paid for. I didn't do FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, too much because at the time, I was also more of the breadwinner. So I just made a little bit more than my husband, and I had all the benefits or most of the benefits at the time. With the first child, so I was pretty much 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, even though I did all the sweet things and all my volunteer stuff, I was stir crazy. So that really proved to me is like, I probably am not stay-at-home mom material for that. So I really wanted that interaction with other people. So fortunately, the timing of when I had my child in the 6 weeks, GM has great benefits. And when I was coming back was when most people were going to go on vacation during the shutdown period. So I could ease into it. And so making that decision to go back to work was fairly easy. Plus I had family support. My mother was willing to stay with me during the week and, kind of help out at home while I was at work. GM at the time didn't have the best facilities for pumping, but at least I was lucky my building had a medical where they had a room where I could go and pump, and they had a sink and everything. So I was my building is a historic building. So, and we are always kind of the last thought of for some of those amenities. But, I had a place to do it. I figured out ways to, at the time, so it was about 10 years ago, and Wi-Fi still wasn't that great. So I would save material to my laptop or print out something and read while I pumped, like some of the things that I had to do. And, got some tips from other moms who had gone through it before me, even got a pump from somebody else who, kept their stuff clean and everything, and just got the things that were actually touching on my own. And that helped, like, just prepare myself to go back to work and be able to take care and do some of the things that I wanted for my son at the time. The second time around was a little bit easier because there was Wi-Fi. GM had added parental leave. So it had just started October 1st, 2016. So I got 8 weeks of paid maternity leave instead of the 6. And And I also didn't really have to do FMLA at that time because it was October. So October 7th is when my son was born, and it eased into Christmas. So again, people started taking vacations. So it was easy to go back into work. And there was Wi-Fi, so I could still be connected and do chats and everything. But again, with having the family support and everything, it really helps be able to know that, I'm not a stay-at-home mom, but I did enjoy having that second time around a little bit more time with the son, because it is different when you have two as well, to try to take care of the older one. And so there's a lot more energy that I needed to recuperate. So having that 2 extra weeks was very helpful.
So when I had kids, I worked at different places for each kid. For the first one, I was at a small company, and I didn't qualify for FMLA by like a month of employment time. So I had 6 weeks of unpaid leave, and it was a 6-week maximum. My boss told me, well, you don't have to take it all. You could be back in 3. And I said, no, I'm not going to come back in 3 weeks. I took the full 6. I spoke with HR about it, and they actually said, hey, we can't hire someone fast enough to replace you in 6 weeks. So don't worry about it. If something happens and I needed to be out a little bit longer, but it wasn't paid. And pretty commonly for the US, I had to just use all my sick leave and vacation time during that time. It's actually required. Some employers require you to use that. The second time for my second kid, I was at the University of Wyoming, and she was born over the summer. She was born in late June. I could have requested to not teach in the fall, but my department head let me know they really needed me to teach. And it was kind of on the borderline so I just did it and was back for the fall semester. And still kept working through it, because with a research lab, you can't just shut down the lab when you have a kid. So I read a lot of PDF documents and Word documents on my phone to get back with students on feedback on their work. It's not ideal, but that's kind of how it works right now. I definitely see the benefit of paid family leave to actually get paid, and actually making it so that policy actually works. So you're not spending your time while you're breastfeeding also reading PDFs on your phone so you can get back to students, which I will admit to doing.
So I had my kids before FMLA even was thought about. And but I did work for a big company with good benefits. Sandia Labs had generous benefits and normal sick leave policies. So I had 6 weeks paid leave with the first, with the first kid. Actually, I wasn't, I was between employers, and I arranged to start the second job 6 weeks after the birth of my kid, or a little more, actually. It was more like 3 months, I think. And we had just planned for that. It worked out fairly well. The second kid, I was working at Sandia Labs, and it was some 8.5 years later. I was an older mom, a similar story to Jenny. I really wanted more time. And so I used every benefit, every thing I could think of to try to stretch my time out. I took my 6 weeks from sick leave. I took a couple of extra weeks from vacation. Then I invoked a little known rule where you could ask for, with permission from your director, a month off with no pay, and have come back to your same position for any reason you wanted, as long as your director approved it, which I did. And then I was into my new year of vacation leave, and it was in October, and we were close to Christmas. Anyway, I managed to stretch it out 4 months of full-time off, part-time for another 3 or 4 months, and that was really, really helpful. So use all the benefits you have to do what you need to do. For me, that was important. I was a 36-year-old mom at that time, and I just really needed more time with my baby at home, and needed being able to ease back into work was ideal. It really worked and was helpful.
Thank you.
I see there's a follow-up question in the chat. Someone was asking about what benefits should she be making sure she has with certain industries or universities. Since she grew up in a stay-at-home mom with a stay-at-home mom, and right now her and her partner are looking at both working. So I know from my perspective, definitely look at what's available. Smaller companies probably have less benefits available to you. Larger ones probably have more flexibility. Different countries are better than the United States with maternity leave and paternity leave. Like, I think Canada gives you a whole year required. Sweden gives like a whole year for each parent, and they don't have to take it at the same time. So there's, we're definitely lacking in the United States for that. But I think being in the field and being competitive, a lot of larger employers are looking at that, and that's why like GM has increased how many weeks and giving some to fathers for paternity leave. And so there's definitely things to look out for with that. And you still have to probably be creative depending on what you like to do and what industry you end up in, because they do have different rules available. I believe in any industry, including academia, they cannot replace you in the United States while you're on leave. It doesn't mean that some people won't still kind of try and do it under the table, because I've been in a lot of Facebook group chats about that, and have seen different ways of women combating that with their HR. So like saving some data of and emails and things of conversations that they had, or documenting conversations that they've had offline to help build a case to show that they're trying to discriminate against you and replace you while you're on leave, or because you just came back from leave, or that you're about to go on leave. I've heard of that as well. Things that you'll want to probably look out for, right, is there some of the culture and the flexibility, kind of like what Janet said. Like, she worked out and she found out, oh, by the way, you could take leave. And I think at GM, you can take a certain kind of leave for up to a year, and they can't technically, you can not necessarily replace you, but they'll kind of save a spot for you, and at least not necessarily the exact same role, but the same level and similar role. So to come back. So it could be for education, it could be for any medical care for a family member, that sort of thing. So kind of look for those things, and you might find out some of these things by talking to other employees at that company, not just the hiring manager, maybe especially other women at it, or even folks, even some of the men who are fathers that may have known, like, what have they been able to do in those situations because they wanted to be more involved.
I would say also look very carefully at the part-time policies of the company. I know two dual career couples at Sandia who both went to 30 hours a week, and they managed to work in shift so that they didn't have to have childcare for their infant for some period of time. 30 hours is still a lot, and you're really still in the workplace, but even just that little bit of flexibility can really help sometimes. So don't ignore those policies. Pay attention when you're hiring on.
I'll second or third that advice to use whatever you can, but I'm going to throw in a different piece of advice outside of this and say, also, where you can, for the outside work stuff, get help. This is a good time to hire someone to help clean the house and things like that. So, because you might be limited in what you can do for work, but maybe you can find pieces of time elsewhere. And maybe that's money well spent. You'll be tired. You'll both be tired, right? So see what you can do. Have food delivered. If you have family that offers to help, great, have them come help. It's the time to say yes to help.
And the other thing I would like to mention, like look for companies who have flexible work arrangements too, right? So even now, with COVID, right, I can work from home more, right? I'm in a job that lets me work from home. Being in a manufacturing or on a construction site, that might be a little bit harder, but maybe you can take a break and change your job as well. Maybe still be in the same company, but be in a different role so that there is a little bit more flexibility. That like on Thursdays, I take my son from 3:00 at 3:00 from daycare to a Chinese lesson. And I can't do anything while he's in the Chinese lesson with COVID. So I wait outside and I have a mobile hotspot on my computer. I got another hour and 15 minutes of work in the day. So that hour that I missed from 3 to 4 that I usually do, now I just shifted it from 4 to 5:15 and, pick them up afterwards. And my boss has been pretty understanding. He's like, I know you have kids in school. So tell me what you need and we'll do our best to support it. Right. So there's, deadlines could be pushed or more flexible, or change a little bit of assignment or get help from other people, like Karen was saying. So it could even be at work, not just at home.
Mhm.
Can I follow up really quickly with just asking what is the Family Medical Leave Act? I've never heard about it until this session, just briefly.
Would you like to answer, Jennifer, or do you want me to?
Oh, you can if you want.
Sure. The Family Medical Leave Act is commonly called FMLA. It allows you to take up to off. It's unpaid. Someone can chime in if they remember how long it is. It's unpaid, but it's for the birth of a child or adoption of a child or death in the family, kind of any big event like that. And HR always has all the information for you. But basically, it prevents you from losing your job when something like that happens. It allows you to take unpaid leave and come back to your job.
I think it's up to 12 weeks. So, and it could have changed. So,
so.
I mean, you can probably look it up, Google it and you'll see what it is for the United States.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, so we actually have a question in the chat from Wanchu. So kind of moving in a different direction. She's wondering, out of curiosity, what do the speakers do during their free time? Do you guys have any hobbies or anything you do to relax?
I'll let the moms talk first, the young mom.
I do a lot of binge watching of television lately. So I'm watching a lot of Netflix in Mandarin and Korean. So a lot of Chinese dramas and Taiwanese dramas and Korean dramas. So not good for me. I do try to read to my kids. I do some Society of Women Engineer stuff. I do yoga. I love doing yoga. And I do scrapbooking and card making when I feel inspired.
So I will admit that what I do has decreased a bit during the pandemic because my kids are at home. And so now, like, I'm working or I'm helping them with school, and I feel like I'm the least interesting person there is. Because by the time I work a full day, help them with school if they need it, and then do all the normal life stuff, like, let's have dinner and then clean up, I am really tired. So like Jennifer, that is my time to crash and let my brain turn off and watch some TV. And other than that, we do normally ski. It's not been a good year for that. We do like to get out and go hiking. We are still doing that and still doing outdoor activities to help inspire my kids to get out more often. We are doing the Sesame Street 100-mile challenge where they have to walk or hike 100 miles in 2021. But it's a good reason to get us outdoors and get us moving. So we do stuff like that. Sometimes we do it at like 5 and then we come back and have a quick dinner. But it gets us outdoors, it gets us moving, and it's a break from kind of the monotony that can develop as you work from home and then do all the normal stuff from home, which I'm sure you guys also understand. So normally I would tell you I do more outdoor stuff. That has dropped a little bit. especially this winter where we don't have enough snow to go skiing and fun things like that, but we do still get outside and go hiking and camping in the summer and all that good stuff.
And I, of course, have my time is way less constrained than these busy working moms, but it happens that I'm super busy. This little part-time job that I took is anywhere from 6 to 30 hours a week. It's sort of seasonal. And right now it's in the 30-hour-a-week mode. So I haven't had a whole lot of extra time, but what I normally do on my time off is I'm a swimmer. I'm the swimmer on a half iron team. So I do the 1.2 mile swim. SWE board member Carrie Greenfelder is the runner, and then we've rotated different cyclists into the team. And so that's been something that keeps me going and motivated to go to the gym. My gym pool is open. It wasn't for a while, and New Mexico was shut down quite a bit. And unfortunately, the open water swim place that I usually go is closed because it's on a Indian reservation. So, and they're closed. So I haven't been able to swim open water in some time, but I have been swimming and walking the dog almost every day. We have some really nice areas around here. When most days in the winter are pretty nice out, like in the 50s and 60s and sunny. And when there's storms going through, then it's time to read a book or binge watch like Jenny, or do some more indoor activities. And I am very, very imbued in a bunch of advocacy work for SWE. I'm actually working with a newly elected New Mexico state senator and starting to look at what we can do to do better on STEM education in New Mexico. So lots of stuff. I'm writing a little book on the side. So there's tons of things that keep me busy.
Great, thank you guys. While we wait for more questions from in the chat, we have a question that was asked previously, and some of you guys already addressed this, but how can you determine the company's stance on work-life balance and familial obligations during the interview process? And have you ever ran into problems with navigating decisions from like your supervisors versus the company's policies as a whole?
Well, I have a lot of suggestions for when you're in the interview mode of how you might suss out what's going on. And you can, sometimes your interviewer is going to be from HR and they'll just kind of have the company line. And sometimes it'll be someone in the work group you're actually going to be in, which is actually an advantage. But, you can ask questions kind of about the company ethos generally. And then you can dive in a little bit more and ask the interviewer, well, what's the atmosphere like at work for you? Ask them personally what they experience. What's the best thing about working here for you? If you're not getting a chance to talk to somebody in the group that you might work in, you can ask to do that before you're hired. So, and you can ask them those questions. Ask to go to lunch with them. In a perfect world, you'd be able to do that, right? Not today, but those are all ways that you can sort of probe during the interview. But I also think that doing homework outside the interview is important. Look for friends in your professional societies or on LinkedIn or places like that work for this company, and ping them and ask them and find out what their experience is at the company, because that's probably the best way you're going to find out, by talking to people who've actually worked there. And keep in mind, it's sort of a caveat, but in large companies, there might be several different cultures depending on the workplace that you're in. And so you have to don't take any one person's word for it that the company is terrible, dealing with women that have kids, unless you are sure it's somebody in the exact work area where you're going to be. And then you can, make your own judgments. But you just have to do a lot of digging and do it before you say yes to the job.
So I agree with a lot of things that Janet said. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is what space you're going to be in, right? And in what phase of life. So as you're coming out, if you're not planning on having kids in the next 3 years after you finish your degree and ready to go into industry, maybe you can take that job that doesn't have that flexibility. So I can tell you a lot of women in the manufacturing space, they, you know, if they want that flexibility for their kids and everything, they might wait to either have kids, or they'll get out of that position and go into more of the engineering side where there's a little bit more flexibility than the operations side. Right. Kind of like some of the teachers that I know, they might, they're going to try to have their kids over the summer so they can do it over summer break because they need that paycheck. So there's sometimes, you know, you think you can control and truly you can control, and then other times you can't. So definitely do what Janet said, kind of ask around in different areas, and also think of like the area that you want to be in as well. And like, are you willing to do this for a little while and then figure out your plan? Like once you do decide to have kids or that extra life to change those positions, and do you think you can position yourself to get into those positions in about the right amount of time? Right. So a lady at work just had her child, came back from maternity leave, started a new job. So she's going to be like me and an additional help because I needed it in our department. So so things like that, you can talk through career development and everything with your bosses and things like, you know that there's things available for you too, that just that one position isn't necessarily going to be, you're going to be in that only position when you start.
And the last thing I'll throw in there is when you're interviewing, kind of step back and take a look around, because one thing I've noticed is that places with more family-friendly policies tend to retain their females more than some others. So one of the places I worked, there were 2 divisions that did similar things, and one was rather female heavy and the other was not. And the managers within them made different decisions. And little indicators like that are also things you can look for, and then that might cause you to ask some good questions.
Thank you. We have one more question. Has it ever become an issue with you and your partner if you make more money or receive a promotion and they have not, or similar experience? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
I'll take this one
Okay,
first.
go.
So I was dating a guy in grad school and we did a race, and I finished before him, and we could never talk about that again. And that was a good sign that this was not going to work. So with my partner, part of our relationship is that we do view it as a partnership, and it's more money coming in. So who cares who's earning more? It's more coming in to those bank accounts. So it hasn't been an issue, but it hasn't been an issue because of the partner that I chose.
Yeah, I'll go next thing. I know there was a part of Wendland's earlier question that about the double standard. Did I get that, from my co-parent or not? Actually, he was really helpful about always sharing things. He just always had jobs at small companies where it was way harder to take off, and where he didn't have benefits if he did, and so on. So that was why a lot of that childcare burden fell to me. But at the same time, he was like, he's always been pretty good about doing laundry, doing housework, and helping with that. And that was like the only reason we didn't have someone coming in to clean, actually, all these years. We've been married 42 years. So that's a long time. And I would say at the beginning, I'll get back to the main question. At the beginning, I don't think he was ever jealous. I wouldn't say jealous, maybe a little envious, but we like to joke. Excuse me, I have this little thing in my throat. He basically supported me while I went through engineering school. So he likes to joke that it was the best investment he ever made. And is to this day, because the company I work for has such good retirement benefits. I actually, unlike almost everybody now, I have a pension, and a 401k. So we were really lucky. in that sense. And over the years, he just like would shake his head and go, wow, wow. He was always really proud of me, which it's a relief, right? You don't want to have a partner like that. I will say that I remember when I was quite a bit younger, I was at a conference for women at Lawrence Livermore Lab for women in the labs. And we had Millie Dresselhaus as a speaker. And at the time, I think she must have been in her 60s or 70s. I don't know how many of you remember her, but she was in the National Academy of Science. She was SWE's award winner for their highest award at one time. And anyway, somebody was asking her these questions about, what's the most important thing? And she said, choose your partner carefully. And I can't tell you how important that is. It's exactly the way Karen described it. There are people that you could choose that would not be good choices to be able to share the burden or whatever. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So I have similar advice. So I think you also have to talk about it, right? And share your financial goals, your family goals, and put out the scenarios. And I know like sometimes they say things that you want to hear, but you can kind of see in their behaviors and everything. So like my conversations with my husband at the time, and he knew I was working for GM when I met him. He had been out, he's 2 years older than me. So he'd been out in industry. He's in engineering consulting, smaller firm, right? So, we did talk about salary and how much, and I started making more. And so he just started calling me his sugar mama. So you kind of knew. And, just as we're dating and everything, you can see like he would take care of himself for the most part. We did, he had student loans. I didn't. So and with those student loans, and then he had like credit cards. So, and he did have a little bit of credit card debt. So, we try to make sure that we got him out of that, so we would be financially stable when we were married. And we talked about, hey, would you be okay if I took off, if I wanted to travel or whatever, or get promoted and they sent me to another country, would you be comfortable with that? And he was like, yeah. So, I don't mind being a stay-at-home dad. And I was like, I don't know if I want you to be a stay-at-home dad. I kind of want to be equal on some of these things. So, because I knew like, both ways, being the single breadwinner or the stay-at-home parent, it can be very tiring and very boring. So I wanted it to be more of an equal standing. So I communicated that to him. And for most of our marriage, so now we're married 17 years, I was like, I made, $5,000-$10,000 more than him. And then when he actually worked for the University of Michigan. And then when he left there to go back into consulting, his PE kicked in. So his PE kicked in, and then he went above me for a while. So it was a little bit of friendly competition, a little bit of like, now I can call him my sugar daddy instead of him calling me his sugar mama. But now again, with COVID and everything, different situations happen, and he had to change jobs and what was available for him and what he enjoyed. Didn't have that paying salary that he had at a different company, but it's a work-life balance choice too, right? So pick what's available, what you enjoy. I told him, don't worry about the money, but to me, his time with us and our family is more important than the money, and we're making about the same amount. Now I'm just a little bit more than him now again, but I think it helps. Like, what do you all value? Can you live with certain things versus title versus money versus hours and everything, and where you want to put your time? So I was fortunate there that he was willing to be flexible. Doesn't mean we don't fight. We still fight on certain things, but but we work it out.
Okay, so I actually have one more question. How do you choose between work-life balance and taking initiatives, or like going beyond your normal responsibilities at work to maybe like become an overachiever? And have you ever regretted choosing life over work, or vice versa?
I'm the oldest. I think I'll take that one first. I wouldn't call them regrets, but I've come to realize as I get the wisdom of years that if I had really thought about it carefully in those times when I was doing the balance decisions, that I would realize that now, if you ask me, and I said, do I regret taking off time to be with my kid, to go to the field trip, to stay home for a little bit longer, to I turned down an opportunity to bid on a manager job while I was home on maternity leave with my second son, and the answer to all those questions is I would never work more. And when I get to my deathbed, I'm never going to say, gee, I wish I'd worked more. So that's just that comes with wisdom and age, and just ask yourself that question. When I'm older and my kids are grown, am I going to ever regret that I didn't do that extra 2 hours of work tonight? Instead of reading the bedtime story, or instead of doing this. That's a really strong parameter, to put against the choices that you're making as you go through and make these choices on life balance. The job is always going to be there. I think retiring from a major career, and I don't know what Nancy will have to say about this, but you look back and you realize that once you're gone for a while, nobody cares. I mean, they do, but they're not worried that you're not there every day doing the same work you did. You're replaceable at work, and you're not replaceable to your family and your kids. So just think about those things as you go through life and make decisions. That's my my old lady wisdom.
Jennifer, did you want to add anything, or do you want me to? I can hop in too.
You can hop in first, and I'll.
Okay. So I can make my comments from a dual income family, and I fully realize that for a single mom, you would make different choices. But for my family, we are a dual income family, and we've purposely made financial decisions. So if we lose an income, we're still okay. And that allows me to make more of those choices than I'd be able to make otherwise. But do I regret the family stuff? No, because I really enjoy it. How do I balance what to say no to at work? It's really gotten to the point of, does this advance my career? If the answer is no, then no, I'm not doing that right now. And so, being at a university, you got to keep going on the research. If teaching quality slides, it doesn't matter. Service, I still end up getting assigned way more service than I should as a female. But I say no to a lot more than I used to, because again, no one actually cares about that in terms of advancement. So I just kind of figure out what's important and do those things. And I try to let the rest of it slide, which is hard because we've all gotten to where we are by doing things really well. And so it's sometimes hard to say like, well, I'm just going to do a crappy job at that and whatever. But that's what you have to do.
Yep.
So I think sometimes on the short term, and like a little bit of envy, I think Nancy kind of touched on it in her speech too, is like, sometimes I do, but overall I don't, because I have to relook at my true north, right? The family time, like everyone else said, you can't really get that back. Can you regret it for a little while? I think so, because maybe it's like what ifs and do that, but you can try to change that if it's bugging you so much to find that next opportunity and then go for it. And at least for me, like talking to my husband about it, like what if I did this? And I mean, I did take risks with a career. I did do a developmental assignment. It was different hours. I got the support from family, and I found out I didn't fit in that environment very well. So I failed in that position to a certain extent, but it wasn't the environment for me that would help me succeed in general. And I did speak up about it. So I regret that I wasn't able to push myself through some of that challenge, but at the same time, long term for my health and my well-being, it wasn't the right environment for me. I appreciated having that experience because it made me appreciate what I had more and how I can make that environment better for other people. And so I was fortunate to go back into the engineering side instead of the operations side. And I learned how to make things better for them and try to move and have that empathy for them. And, you know, I talked in my breakout area about advocating for yourself. And, you know, I had mainly successes in my career at that time. And that was my first failure. And I had to kind of pick myself up. And luckily, my performance in that area where I was more of my strength, it went back up. And even my executive director and all the other people working with me, they're just like, I don't understand what happened here. It definitely wasn't the right environment. And, you know, on one-on-one sessions was able to talk and share what kind of happened and some of the underlying things that was like, they said they had to make me look bad to move me back in type of things. And you know, it was kind of a strategic thing, but it looked kind of bad on my record for a little while. But like getting the feedback from the leadership in the group that I was originally in, it kind of picked me back up and was like, okay, this is right. This is my strength. I'm still doing well. I have the flexibility that I want and I need for me and my family. So even though there was maybe some regret sometimes, overall, it's not a regret.
It looks like we have a question from Wendelin.
Yeah, my question is for Janet. So Janet, now at the end of the traditional part of your career is over, right? And so you're in this new phase. And how do you look back on it all now as a woman? And is the fact that you did it all as a woman, is that meaningful to you? I mean, how do you think of that part of the contribution of your career to the field?
It's a really interesting question, Gwendolyn. And I actually have thought about that in a couple of contexts. You all may realize that I grew up in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and Gloria Steinem and company were telling us all that we could have it all, right? Well, you can, except for you might not be able to have it all at the same time or at the same level that you would like. And of course, I had to learn that the hard way. Plus the fact that I'm a fairly driven person, you know, I wanted to do everything. So when I look back now, I realize that I could have figured out maybe better how to have it all, but have it parsed out a little differently and in different stages instead of trying to have it all at once. So there was a point in my life when my husband was traveling for his job. I had my mother living with us at home, which sounds great, but she's 41 years older than me. I mean, she wasn't young. And I had the two kids, and I was on a program at Sandia called University Part-Time. So I was working 20 hours a week and going to grad school full time. And I was trying to manage everything and juggle everything. And I mean, I remember a night when I was driving home from my late night class that was from 7 to 10 on Thursdays or something. And I was crying. I was like, I could do this. I could do this. You know, I wonder why I pushed myself now into that position and didn't just do what the other people I knew did, take the 1 or 2 easy classes and stretch it out 5 years and get my master's later. I think at the time I felt compelled and to succeed and do that. And I pushed myself really hard to get it done under kind of extraordinary circumstances. But, by the way, during that time, our section had been chosen to host a national conference, and I was one of the chairs. So my life was way, way too full, and I didn't have the foresight, gumption, wisdom to say, wait, enough, you know, put one of these things on hold. So that's the wisdom of ages. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So I think that's interesting wisdom, Janet, because from the academic side, you always hear like, you're in grad school, this is not a good time to have kids. Oh, you're in a postdoc, this is not a good time to have kids. Oh, you're an assistant professor, this is not a good time to have kids. And then I do actually still know plenty of people that waited too long and can't have kids. So as much as it sounds nice, I think realistically, it's still hard.
Academics have a
you just kind of have
particular
to-
problem. I agree, Karen.
Yeah. And so if you're going that route, I mean, I guess my best advice is do the things in your personal life when you need to do them and don't put them off because there's not a good time. So yeah, I know it doesn't sound so positive, but keep your personal life so you're happy and the work stuff, you'll make it work.
Well, that's where the other advice is we all have been giving you, delegate things and to outsource things like house cleaning or live with it. Live with a messy house. Who cares? I mean, unless you've got cockroaches or something. But I mean, that's live with it or let it go. You gotta make choices here, and there are choices that will help you be resilient and enjoy it and live with it and be able to survive and not make sacrifices like the one that Karen made, which was not having children if you put it off too long, right? So yes, I agree.
So,
Yeah, like other things like putting off too long, like she said, don't have, you might not have kids. You might even find, you'll have to go through a lot of things to have those kids, and those take time as well. Right. So I had to go through infertility treatments and had to figure out, what was wrong, what was going on. And I mean, that's an emotional roller coaster in itself, and you're working. And sometimes you feel like you got to hide that stuff. But I was fortunate. I had a boss who was like, yeah, do whatever you need to get done. So, because doctor's offices, like, hey, working in manufacturing engineering, I got to be there probably between 7 and 7:30. And the earliest some of the doctor's offices for this fertility treatments open was 7:30. So, how do you take time off to go and do that doctor's appointment to take care of some of those things that you don't really want to tell other people about? So you do have to have those conversations with a couple of people, and yeah, for sure, like whatever your timeline is. And if you think you're going to have enough time, you got to be a little bit careful with that, because sometimes your body doesn't do what you think it's going to do.
Yeah. So I have 2 kids and luckily did not have to go the IVF route, which I am thankful for. But I know a colleague of mine was just commenting on the number of twins in academia, because people wait so long that they do end up going the IVF route and end up with twins. So it's just something that you kind of have to balance. I know when I was in grad school, one of the labs was actually very proud about the number of babies that were born to postdocs in their lab, because they had more family friendly policies than the other lab. When you think about moving to your next position.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Unfortunately, we're out of time right now for questions, but I want to thank all of you again. Thank you, Jan, Jennifer, and Karen, for your time and all of your insights. After this, we have a networking session, which is located in the networking lounge in Gathertown. So you can go back, re-enter Gathertown, and then move on to the networking lounge. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Vanessa.